Hello, everyone. Welcome to Small Talk. Well, I'm very excited to speak with today's guest. He is a musician. He is also the former president of the Métis Nation in Ontario, and he currently lives in Ontario. Please welcome Tony Belcourt. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure for sure. So just before we started recording, I had to ask you about, you said you play the guitar. So are you out there performing actively?
Oh, no, no, no.
Oh, just for your own amusement, I guess, then, eh?
It's my own amusement, of course. Especially around, I love being around campfires and good old Métis kitchen parties. And I used to play down in Yorkville, but that was in the 60s.
Okay, all right. Just want to get all of that stuff clear, right? Now, you were originally from Edmonton, is that right?
Lac Saint-Anne, which is Manitousquariahin is the name of my lake, Spirit Lake. It's just west of Edmonton.
Okay.
About Well, in my day, by horse and buggy or by car, it was half a day. Uh, and now with the highways, it's only about 45 minutes.
Right. It's kind of interesting when you talk about my day. Like I remember my grandfather delivering milk with a horse and wagon, you know.
Uh,
So just the way it was, right?
Yep.
Okay, now you also studied an honorary doctor of laws. What does that mean?
Uh, Honorary doctorates are really just an honor that is given by a university. Uh, I spent a great deal of my life fighting for Métis rights and involved with the Powley case, which is the first Métis case that went to the Supreme Court of Canada. And I think it's in recognition of all of that effort that the university decided to give me an honorary doctorate. So I get to put that at the end of my name.
Yeah, right. Becomes your title, which is really pretty cool, right?
Mhm.
For sure. So now, okay, so when you were oh, wait a minute, sorry. You're the former president at Indigenous Commission for Communications Technologies in the Americas. Like, wow. So what did that entail?
We got together, we had a board made up of Indigenous people from each of the countries of Central and South America and North America.
Mm,
And our whole purpose was to try to uh, help people use technology uh, for what they were trying to achieve, whether it's recognition or whether it's rights or um, just plain communication between the people. A lot of the technology available in South America in particular and Central America was primarily radio.
right.
But with the advent of the internet, the problem with the internet is that there's just not much internet service around. People use cell phones a lot in Central and South America.
Okay.
What they do is they go and they buy time,
Mm,
how much they can afford. So using cell phones was really important. The use of technology is well, in some cases, it's a matter of saving lives.
right,
The,
yeah.
the There was a big landslide at one of the small communities outside of Guatemala City in a volcano, on a volcano mountain. And the people heard that they should get out of the way because the mountainside was going to come down, and they got out of the way, and it came right down through the center of the village,
Wow.
which is where there was a creek, and it just wiped everything out that was there. But the people were saved because this guy managed to get to the radio station and alert everybody to get out there.
Right.
So one of the things he needed was a transmitter. So I helped him get a transmitter. I mean, we were doing that sort of thing, but a lot of it was also trying to encourage financial support from the International Telecommunications Union, for example, and from government departments. The Canadian government at the time, before it changed hands, was very supportive. It's meant a lot to people.
Yeah, right. Did you spend a lot of time in the Americas in the different countries?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I've visited almost every country.
Right. Now,
And
must be interesting, right, to see the contrasts.
well, the poverty is really something. And in Bolivia, for example, one of the projects we were working on with the Bolivian government and people here was a remote medical unit to take an old vehicle and equip it with dental equipment and eye doc equipment and basic needs, because they don't have that in the communities. They don't have healthcare. Women are pregnant need healthcare. They have to walk or come down by horse or donkey to a place where there might just be very basic kind of medical care. So trying to introduce these ideas, I mean, they're feasible and they're a more economic way of providing healthcare. So you go around to the communities with this vehicle. It's like the old bookmobile days. Remember that? I don't know if you ever knew about those, but we didn't have libraries, and so this bookmobile would come by with libraries. Well, it's the same idea.
Right, yeah. Pretty interesting, you know. Now, considering all the countries you've been to and all your involvement, you must have seen a lot of changes, right, for the Indigenous people, for the Métis.
Well, a lot of changes for Métis in Canada, for sure. And well, yeah, I would say there's a lot of changes throughout the Americas and the world, really, because of the focus of the United Nations has through the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples.
Yeah.
That's helped to bring about some change. But, some places there's just not ever going to be that kind of support. The regimes, the dictators and so on. The Indigenous people are kind of in the way.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's pretty well universal, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
we're fortunate in Canada. All Indigenous are fortunate in Canada. We have in our Constitution now the recognition of the rights, Treaty on Aboriginal Rights of the Aboriginal peoples, which includes the Indians, the Inuit, and the Métis. And because we have that in our Constitution, we've been able to use the courts successfully to force governments to do all sorts of things that they never wanted to do before.
Yeah, and some of the things they said they were going to do, but
that's
right.
Oh yeah, they're always saying they're going to do something and never get around to do it, for whatever reasons. I mean, you can't knock the governments entirely. I mean, we're not doing too bad in Canada. I mean, some communities, as you know, there is desperate situations. I mean, cases of lack of safe drinking water, the pollution that's in the rivers because of mining and so on, the poverty that exists, the effects of the Indian residential school era and regime, and not only residential schools, but the 60s scoop. Those have had devastating effects on our people and their way of life. And there's second and third generation trauma that's going on that causes a lot of difficulty for people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, there's a lot that has to be done. Governments are doing some things, but a lot more obviously needs to be done.
Right. I think also too, like I tell people, like I'm European descent, okay, and I think a lot of it for people like me is like we have to recognize and just admit that these things happen or are happening, and because I always think like if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So if I see something, if I see a person of Indigenous person or somebody with different color skin, whatever, being mistreated or abused, and I just keep my mouth shut, like I'm part of that problem.
Mhm.
You know, and I tell other people, you have to look and you have to open your eyes and not label everybody the same way. You know how they want to just say that you hear this, First Nations people are, you know, drunks, alcoholics, all this stuff. And it's like, that's not who I see on the streets around here where I, you know, so we got to get those stereotyping.
Well, again, I see some changes happening because of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and all of the attention that's paid now is to reconciliation. You know, we have one day of the year. It's called, you know, National Truth and Reconciliation Day on September 30th. And that's meaningful. But outside of that, because of the attention on the recommendations and so on, there are groups that have been formed, like in where I live here, this little town of Almont, outside of Ottawa. It's has a group that started a few years ago called All My Relations Mississippi Mills, or Mississippi Mills All My Relations. And they have done incredible things in bringing people from town together to be involved in projects that are creating awareness. They have this site not far from where I am called the Seven Generations Gifts. They commissioned a local carver, was an amazing carver by the name of Nishnabé, to carve the animals, the totems of the seven generations.
Right.
And they made bronze maquettes out of the bronze out of those carvings, and they put them on this incredible marble stones. It's an outside thing in a circle, teaching about, well, the teachings.
Right.
So they've done something like that. I mean, they every year they're doing events
Right.
throughout the year to try to get people to understand Indigenous peoples and appreciate our values and customs and way of life and what we do, and also the needs that exist in our communities. So there are groups like that that are springing up all over the place.
It sounds like you're coming from a very positive place, you know, right? Very
Well,
positive mindset.
you've got to be. I mean, when you you have to be, you have to have a positive outlook and think that, oh, we're going to bring about change. And if you don't, why bother? I mean, I'm not the kind that's going to give up. I mean, we have challenges, but I'm going to be at them until I'm no longer able to do anything.
Yeah, for sure. Now, if I can just ask you about, like on a personal level, like being Métis, were you in touch with both sides of your family, your ancestors?
Well, in my community, all of our ancestors are Métis. Like my mom and dad and my grandparents and great grandparents and so on, until you go back to the early 1800s when the first voyageurs, fur traders, came out of our territory, and there happened to be First Nations women that took them in.
Right.
And they're the women, those women are the ones that raised the children, raised my great-great-grandparents, gave them the language, customs, and the medicines, all of the teachings and values that are part of our society, the Métis people. So we don't have sort of Indian and white
Okay,
family members, or, it's just not like that, because we are a people. I
right,
mean,
right.
my mom's Métis, my dad, grandparents, all of them were all Métis people.
Okay, gotcha. I didn't understand that, I think, so thanks for clarifying that for me. I really appreciate it. Now, being a Métis, are your ceremonies, do they differ a lot from, say, like out here we have the Stolo Nation or whatever? Are they different, or are they amalgamated with the French, or, whatever the backgrounds are?
No, the traditional ceremonies of our people, depending on where you are, I mean, if in my case, it's Nehiyat Pri, uh, or Assiniboine or
Oh,
Soto, or out here in Ontario, Anishinaabe, Anishinaabe, the 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 values and customs of the First Nations uh, people are the same value. Those are the values we've inherited.
right,
Um, and our people, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, are all the same. Many of our people, they pray in different ways. Some people are uh, Catholic or Anglican or whatever, and then other people follow traditional ways
right, for sure, yeah.
of faith and ceremony.
Okay, right. So now at this point in your life, what are you doing? I mean, obviously still very involved with Métis Nation, I suppose. I'm assuming. But what are you doing currently?
Well, I'm very much involved in trying to restore relationships between First Nations and Métis that we used to have back in the 1990s and the 2000s,
Oh,
and somehow those relationships got broken. Um, and also trying to create a greater understanding of the Métis communities of Ontario. When people talk about Métis communities, they're very familiar with the communities, more so on the prairies. Louis Riel and the Battle of Batoche and so on. Those are all famous things. Um, the kinds of things that took place in Ontario, such as the Métis involvement in the War of 1812 or in bringing about the Robinson Treaty in 1850. Those sorts of things have not been heralded like those of the prairies. These are fairly new, and there's a reason really for that, because the Ontario government had a bounty on Louis Riel's head in 1872. So there wasn't much reason for Métis people here to be holding their head high
yeah,
until within the last 50 years. And so we don't have the literature in the schools or teachings in the schools about the Métis people of Ontario or the Métis communities of Ontario. And so that's a big job, trying to
mm,
have people do an understanding of that, because a lot of people say, well, you live beside a Métis community, or your ancestors were Indian, why don't you just become Indian? I mean,
yeah,
not understanding that we are a people who are tied together through kinship ties, our customs,
yeah,
we're our families, we go to church together, we have our parties together, we dance together. We are a people all to our own.
right,
People may speak the language and be involved in traditional customs and ceremony, but our people are on their own.
right,
And creating that understanding within First Nations is even something that needs to be done. The use of the term Métis has been a problem. Um, that's a term that we've all accepted within the Métis Nation to identify us as a people,
all right,
the term that's in the Constitution. But historically, in my community, Lac Saint Anne, for example, when I was growing up, we didn't use the word Métis. We always referred to ourselves as Nahio, which means the people in the language,
oh,
or uh, excuse me, Apatago San, our relatives at the reserve refer to us as Apatago San, which means Cree half cousins. So in the language, people and half-breeds, that term was used. So the word Métis was not used very often, even in my community. So in Ontario, where there's even less understanding or knowledge about Métis people, it's even more problematic because the people in the community have never heard the term Métis.
Right.
Our people in the communities here were referred to as Uptinishnaabeg by the Anishinaabe people.
Okay.
And they understood the term half-breed. So when you talk to First Nations here about the Métis, but you use the terms that they understand, oh yeah, we know who they are.
Right.
Yeah, we're related to them. That's yes, immediately you have that. So having that dialogue take place is really critical, and I'm involved trying to help out with that. And I'm also actively involved in trying to further reconciliation. And I have a project coming up on September 30th this year called Reconciliation Through Art. And the local museum, the Mississippi Valley Textile Museum, has given us 4 days, the entire museum space.
Right.
So we're going to have artists, Métis artists, but First Nations and Inuit as well, artists. And then we're going to have performers. We're going to have storytellers. And it's just we're going to do a water walk and an offering to the water. I mean, it's all
Wow.
And to try to promote the artists as well, and
Yes.
and see the incredible talent that's out there. And help to tell those artists make money too.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. Are you an artist, by the way?
No.
Okay.
My daughter is. You might have heard of her. My daughter is. You might have heard of her, Christy Belcourt.
I don't know. The name rings a bell. I don't know. I'm not sure. But...
Well, there was just a stamp released.
Oh, of course. Oh my goodness. Oh, all right. It didn't relate the two names, for sure. Wow, that's pretty. That is so awesome. Well,
yeah, I have another daughter, Suzanne, who is a graphic artist. She's a brilliant graphic artist, and my son is a filmmaker.
Very good. Hey, let them know if they want to be on my show. I'd love to talk to them. I'm always loving, with people.
Yeah.
There's so many talented people up there, and what I love about Indigenous, whether it's Métis or whatever, the style is even though everybody is so different, like that they're Indigenous. It's so different from European artists, like in my mind anyway, right? And I just love it for whatever reason. Just speaks to me, I suppose you could say. And I think we're just going to be running out of time soon till somebody's walking back and forth behind you. So they're going to be on TV.
Oh.
Anyway, does she want to say hello?
She's feeding the dogs.
Oh, okay.
After them. Yeah.
So, yeah, did we touch on everything that you wanted to get out there?
Sure. I mean, whatever you wanted me to talk about,
yeah, okay. And people can get a hold of you on Facebook if they want to learn more, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or Google my name on Google.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. That's wonderful. And you're always welcome to come back on anytime if you have something that you want to promote or whatever. I'd be more than happy to have you back on. So, but just stay on camera for just a second. To the audience, thank you, everybody. You've been listening to Tony Belcourt about, what did I say? Belcourt. Sorry about that, Tony. Oh my gosh. Belcourt, as some people say. So if you want to learn more about him, as we mentioned, he's on Facebook, or just Google his name and you'll find out more. And thank you, everybody, for watching this show. I hope you continue to do so. Take care, everybody, and peace out.
Take care.
Thanks, Tony. Thank you. Just before we end, I just want to let you know when this is going to air. I'll quickly bring up my calendar. So this is going to be airing on, where are we here? On, I think, August 9th, 4 o'clock my time, but I will send you the link once it airs. Okay?
Yeah.
You can see it. And thanks again. I really appreciate you doing this. So thank you very much for taking the time.
Well, thank you.
And enjoy the rest of your day.
And you too.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.